Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So,
If you want it here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a different time
Yeah, completely.
when I came. Yeah.
Our first half of this group interview is just group interview, but the second half, there will be
Individually.
interviews. So there's
Okay.
Firstly, regarding the yesterday's meeting with the Japanese foreign minister, I heard there was consensus to proceed with final adjustments for the resumption of funding. Could you provide us details on the discussion?
So basically, yesterday I had a very constructive meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We were discussing, in fact, about all the measures Unrwa has taken since the famous allegation about the 12 staff who might have participated to the October 7 massacre. I reminded also the Minister the number of action already taken by the agency. The first one, as you remember, was to terminate the contract of the staff because of the severity, I would say, of the allegation, and it was quite horrifying, the idea that staff might have participated. Secondly, with the support of the Secretary General, we have also put in place an independent investigation through our internal oversight services. This started shortly after the allegation was conveyed to the agency. And thirdly, the Secretary General has also commissioned a review of all the risk management system of the agencies to Catherine Colonna, who is a former Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, supported by 3 Scandinavian think tank and institute. Basically, we will have the final recommendation of this review by April 20, but already March 20 in New York, some preliminary recommendations have been shared with the member states, but also with the agency, and basically calling for some, I would say, reinforcement of internal oversight mechanism. Now, yesterday, we also discussed, in addition of the commitment the agency has to follow up on all the recommendations coming out from this review, some specific concern coming from Japan to make sure that that the Japanese taxpayers knows exactly where the money is going. We were discussing the point to put in place a joint monitoring framework with Japanese staff to trace, in fact, all the funds, but also to measure the impact of the activities so that we have total transparency. Now, is there a time frame? No, there is no real time frame per se, but it was an important discussion in the process to seek the review of the Japan's position regarding the funding of the agency. As you know, few donors already over the last couple of weeks have already announced the return of their funding to the agency. It started with the European Commission, and then all the Nordic countries. You saw Canada, you saw Australia.
next question from me. I'm Wataru from TV Tokyo regarding the meeting with Japanese Foreign Minister Kamikawa. In this meeting, you also promised to address the textbook issue of the school in Gaza. So what can you do about?
But first of all, as you pointed out, I was here in October last year, and in October last year, before the event in the region, we were marking the 70 years of a partnership between Japan and Unrwa, and it was an important milestone. On one hand, I said there is very little to rejoice per se, because that means also 70 years of absence of a political solution in one of the longest lasting unresolved conflict, because UNRWA was supposed to be a temporary organization, but that also showed the solidarity that Japan and the Japanese people have over the last few decades expressed towards Palestinian and towards the Palestinian refugees through Unrwa. And I really hope that this expression of solidarity and the partnership that Japan has with Unrwa will continue until the day there is a proper political solution. So that's my expectation, my hope, and this is also one of the reasons why we had such an important and detailed discussion, because it's important that the Japanese public feel reassured about where its tax money is going, basically. Regarding the textbook, this is not a new issue. It has popped up over the last 10-15 years. As a best practice, Unrwa uses the textbook of the host country, and in this particular case, the textbook of the Palestinian authorities. We are constantly going through all the pages of the textbook to make sure that they are in line with the UNESCO standard, and whenever there is a problem being identified, we are also providing to the teacher guidance on how to tackle or teach a given material. We usually have 2 or 3 types of problem. One is related to age appropriateness, the other one is related to gender stereotype, but the third one can also be related to issues for discrimination or tolerance and so on. Now, I have been very clear, and I had this discussion also with the Palestinian Authority recently, that while we have put a lot of effort to promote critical thinking in our school, and we are very proud of this, we have put a lot of effort also to promote a human rights curriculum in our school, and we have also achieved gender parity. There are still some issues which can be addressed, issues which could be related to or perceived as being an incitement to violence, more difficult to put into context, and basically I'm determined to make sure that in the future this does not even appear anymore in the textbook in our school. And that's a dialogue I have initiated with the Palestinian authorities.
The top contributors such as the US have not yet to resume their funding. If this current situation continues, when the funding for Unrwa would run out, do you think?
The funding and the precarious financial situation is not new within the organization. You heard me many times over the last 4 years that basically I'm running an organization with a negative cash flow. Now, with the unprecedented humanitarian crisis in Gaza, obviously it's important that an agency like Unrwa, having the biggest footprint in Gaza, be able to continue to operate. It's a race against the clock to try to reverse, in fact, the unfolding starvation and famine taking place there. So we need more than ever all possible resources. Now, regarding the US, it is true that the US has informed that there will be no funding for the organization until March 2025. The US is the main donor of the agency, or at least was the main donor over the last few years, and clearly this will create a very important shortfall. It will have an impact on our activities, have an impact on the visibility also that we will have regarding the funding situation. At the same time, the US and through the Secretary of State Antony Blinken has also called on the other countries to keep their funding or to increase their funding, hoping that partly it will compensate the shortfall of the United States. I don't think we will necessarily succeed to compensate such a large amount, so it will have an impact, but we will have to find ways to bridge between now and March 2025, hoping that at that time the administration in place will decide to resume the funding to the agency. Meanwhile, we will be looking at alternative, see to which extent current donors can increase their contribution to the agency, but we will also be seeking at new donors in the Gulf, but also beyond. For example, we have received a contribution recently from Iraq, or an announcement for $25 million. We had also in the region here a contribution coming from Singapore, which is an important new contribution also. So we will definitely be seeking at ways to broaden, in fact, the donor base of the organization. It's hugely challenging, but basically we have no other choice.
About the humanitarian situation in Gaza. So how critical is the situation in Gaza at the moment? And then so in addition, you tried to go to Rafah the other day, but it was rejected by Israel government. So I would like to know the circumstance.
I keep describing the humanitarian crisis as the crisis of all the possible superlative. If you look at the number of people killed in 5 months, basically it's 3 times more in 5 months than in 2 years in the Ukraine war. You have as many children killed in 5 months than you had in 4 years of in all the conflict across the board. If you look at the number of United Nations staff killed only in my organization, more than 170. The number of journalists killed, the number of health staff being killed is higher than in any other context. In addition to that, you take into consideration that 90% of the population has been displaced, a man-made famine looming into Gaza Strip, a region where people have never ever encountered hunger per se. All of suddenly you have more than half the population in a catastrophic nutritional situation, as it has been confirmed by a food expert a few weeks ago. So it's a race against the clock. People are starting to die because of hunger, and we know this is man-made, and because and man-made means it can easily be reversed, and the response is we have to flood the Gaza Strip with sufficient life-saving assistance and with food. And we are in a more dramatic situation today than we were 2 months ago. It's not by lack of not knowing, because the warning has always been here. So that's collectively we have to find a way. Fortunately, this week, for the first time, the Security Council could agree to call for a ceasefire, to call for the release of the hostages, but also to call for a significant increase of the humanitarian assistance. So the answer is political will. If we have political will, we should be able to reverse this looming famine. Now, on the question about Rafah, it is true that I intended to go to Rafah 10 days ago, and at the last minute, my entry has been denied. The entry of all my colleagues who were accompanying me was accepted, except for me, so it was clearly intentional to prevent the Commissioner General to go into the Gaza Strip. You have also heard that last week our convoys from the south to the north have also been denied access, despite the fact that in the north the nutritional situation is particularly dramatic right now. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, this is the final interview. Yeah, one interview.
They are never final.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, I can imagine. So let's get started. It reported Israel is now considering an invasion into Rafah. Yeah, many people are evacuated. What will happen if this invasion occurs?
Listen, I think the entire international community has expressed concern about the idea and the possibility of an offensive in Rafah. It would be an offensive in the middle of a sea of displaced people. We have more than 1.5 million people, and it is also clear that in the Gaza Strip there is absolutely no safe place to go for anyone. And we have seen it, in fact, over the last 5-6 months. People were asked to move from one place to the other one, but the new places where they moved in was not necessarily safer. So we have expressed this concern. Member State, the Security Council, everyone has expressed this concern. I really hope it will not happen. I really hope that it will, because if it happens, it will add a new layer in this endless human tragedy unfolding in Gaza.
The next question is about, so probably noticed these types of documents, from the Israel intelligence, this document, they said even the principals of Unrwa school, involved October attack. The Israel state, the case is not just a case. 17% of Unrwa staff members have connection to the terrorist groups, mainly like Hamas. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, these are reports which are primarily shared with the media. Mm-hmm. They're not shared with the UN. Mm-hmm. They're not shared with UNRWA. So the first question is what the purpose behind it. Is there an intention to undermine to the reputation of the organization? Why are these allegations not directly shared with the concerned agency? This as a starting point. Secondly, regarding involved staff, and especially the 12th, because I understand that they are also part of this report you just showed to me. Our call to Israel is please cooperate and provide any additional fact beyond the allegation with the independent investigation team which has been put in place, because we will after that decide the next step to be taken after the recommendation of the investigation team. So basically that's where we are today.